Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Go 24/7 podcast, recording this on Wednesday afternoon. So that means the LSU baseball team has already continued their dominance in Hoover as a team that has won 15 out of their last 20. They have won 5 straight dating back to the final weekend of the regular season against Ole Miss. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Glen West. Glen, I woke up this morning. I thought LSU could win this game. I don't know if anybody thought that they would win this game in the fashion that they did. And it's a testament to how this team is continuing to build. Just kind of your immediate reaction to a little bit of what happened yesterday, but obviously what's fresh on the mind. A dominant run rule performance against a team that's going to be one of the higher seeded hosts when the selection show happens on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you probably went into this week and thought that LSU was going to outscore Georgia and Kentucky 20-1 in these two games and run rule Kentucky, who's going to be hosting a regional and very well could be hosting a super regional as a national seed, I would have probably called you pretty crazy there. Like that was not going to be in my blueprint of predictions for this week in Hoover for LSU. I think for us coming in, I think probably the overarching thought was just, all right, try to get one, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
feel like LSU might be in a good spot here to make the tournament, but you're still kind of on shaky ground. You don't really know because, obviously there's a lot of other SEC teams that are bunched in with LSU right now with those 13 conference wins. Not only did they come out and they beat the brakes off of Georgia in the first game and win it pretty convincingly with Gage Jump on the mound and getting some big timely clutch hits as the game goes along. You come out the next day and you run rule Kentucky, who's going to be probably a top 5, 6, 7 national seed. And now all of a sudden you go from, all right, maybe this team gets in, maybe they don't. We feel pretty solid about it to this is for sure a tournament team. This is going to be a team that I think nobody wants to see. They are playing as hot as any team right now in the country with the kind of wins that they've had over the last couple weeks. And they've been getting it done from every aspect, like pitching, defense, and hitting has not blended together like it has the last couple weeks for LSU. Even going back to the Alabama series, like you were really 1 out away from winning that series as well. And you're talking about a team that potentially has won 16 of their last 20 and had won 5 straight SEC series. Like this is a totally different team than the one that we saw even a month and a half ago when they were really struggling at the very start of the conference play here. They have taken it to some of these teams over the last several weeks, and that's a huge credit to, I think, them finally finding a pitching rotation that they like. Moving Gage Jump into that first starter spot, having them somebody like a Holman back him up, and then kind of piecing it together in those game threes. It seems like they've broken the game 3 curse with Bryce there on what Saturday in that game. I guess it was a game 3, so it wasn't a Sunday game, but it was just avoid the Sunday games if you're LSU. Just avoid them like the plague. So there's just a lot of momentum right now going for this team. They've been I think you could probably point to 2 or 3 pitching performances the last several weeks that LSU's had, and they all stack up as among the better ones of the entire season for this group, and that's been complemented with some really elite defense. We'll get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff here as the pod goes along, but just really an exciting kind of last couple games. It kind of reinvigorates, I think, the belief of this team that they can compete with some of the top teams in the country the way that they've handled their business over the last several weeks. And Jay Johnson told us, man, like 15, he always believed this was a top 15 team. I think that was, at least for a little while, kind of fool's gold. It was not a sentiment that was shared by many, but when you see them put up, back-to-back performances like this and just the consistency with which they're playing right now, this team at its ceiling can beat anybody in the country. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that I've learned here over the last couple weeks.
Jay Johnson said at the beginning of the year, in the middle, and to his credit, was a constant message to the media and the fans in those press conferences that he believed Gage Jump and Luke Holman were 2 of, if not the best, 2 of the best pitchers in the portal, and they are now in Baton Rouge. Glenn, when I look at these 2 box scores, when push comes to shove, and these guys have been doing it for a while, but when it mattered the most, both Jump and Holman are stepping up. and we were just talking about before the podcast, and this is not a discredit to what it is. Maybe it's a little bit of being spoiled of what we saw last year between Paul Skeens and Ty Floyd. The stuff, the natural stuff, is probably not as high up there as it was with Skeens and Floyd, but the ability to command and give credit to or pitching coach Nate Yeski attacking with the fastball, staying aggressive out there on the mound. It has positioned this team very well to where they haven't had to use a ton of relievers. They haven't had a ton of high leverage situations to where I know that day 3 of this tournament is going to say, okay, where do we go here from a pitching perspective? But Glenn, you have to feel good about it when you look at some of the big names who really are probably going to be available throughout the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, they've used 4 pitchers. They've used the 2 starters in Holman and Jump, and they've used Griffin Herring yesterday, and they used Gavin Guidry today. And Herring kept his pitch count to around 33. I would imagine he's available sometime later this week. Guidry threw 35. I would imagine he's available sometime later in the week as well. So, like, they are in a really, really good spot with their pitching here. And this is kind of the time here because, I think we now can see that LSU can win any 2 games in a row when you've got Jump and Holman on the mound. Those guys can help carry you through. I think what we're about to see here coming up over the next few days is can this bullpen, can the piecing together of the bullpen that they've been able to do the last couple weeks, can that take another step up? Because you're going to need those guys eventually. Like, you cannot go deep into the postseason here, just banking on your 2 starters to get you through 2 games and then, not really knowing what's going to happen after that. Like, I think they have to find some established pitching. You still got Christian Little, who you've not used. You still got obviously Sam Dutton, who they've used the last couple of game 3s to close the regular season. Nate Ackenhausen's still available. Aiden Moffitt, Justin Lohr. A lot of these guys who have seen some opportunities as the season has come down to a close here, and responded. Those guys are going to be tasked here on Thursday, on Friday, whoever they wind up playing over the next couple days, to really kind of carry LSU further into this tournament. And I think it'll give the coaching staff a really good opportunity to see who are the guys that we can rely on come postseason time, because you are going to need somebody outside of those main 3 of Herring, of Jump, of Griffin Herring, of Holman, rather. So, like, there's a lot that can still be learned here over the next couple days. Win, lose, or draw, like, I think LSU has positioned themselves in a great spot here. Now, would you like to go lose, in run rule fashion to Arkansas tomorrow? Probably not. You'd like to be competitive in these games over the next couple days, and try to get greedy. Look, I mean, they are firmly right now, I think, in the 3 spot as a tournament team. What if they get further into the weekend with a couple more wins? Are we talking about a team that could potentially be a 2 seed? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that everything is in play right now, especially the way they've dominated these first couple of games, because the committee, the selection committee, they take into account how a team is finishing the season. And I don't think there's a committee member out there that can look at these last 2 games from LSU and say, man, those guys are the team that we thought they were in the preseason. That team at its ceiling can be one of the 5-10 best teams in the country. And that's really exciting to think about if you're an LSU fan going into the most integral time of the year. You're playing your best ball really all around.
Yeah, and I've kept an eye on some other conference tournaments over in the American. East Carolina not getting upset helps out with a lot of those. I don't want to call them, bid stealers, but that would have been one. If East Carolina it doesn't win the American Conference tournament, then they're going to get one of those at-large bids. Kept an eye on the ACC tournament when you start to look at a couple of teams over there that, potentially would be on the bubble. Here's the thing, what you just mentioned is, and I want to throw this out here because, yes, there is maybe an SEC bias for good reason, I will give you, when you look at what they've been able to do. But, Glenn, you best believe the committee wants the brand of LSU in this tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's no question, no doubt, whether they deserve it or not. But you talk about that push for a 2 seed. 48 hours ago, I would have called you crazy. I'd have said, Glenn, I want some of the good stuff that you got going on over there at your house because I don't know what you got going on. But the push for a 2 seed, you look, they're going to play tomorrow, 4:30 against the winner of Arkansas and South Carolina. That game is being played right now as we record. Let's just play the hypothetical, and let's say Arkansas does win. If you beat Arkansas, that's just more. I mean, South Carolina's a good team too, but if you were able to beat an Arkansas team, That's just more beef to the resume. Like it's already a good resume, but when this committee sits down, late Saturday night and kind of obviously into the weekend, and continues to kind of look at some of the final teams jockeying for spots, 2 seeds not out of the question. And I kind of wanted to take this because the pitching has been magnificent. On Saturday, that game 3, we all know that Nate Ackenhausen pitched fantastic from innings 2 on. Is Ackenhausen a guy, and I don't know if Jay Johnson has announced, I know you watched the post-game presser there, Glenn. I don't think they've decided. It doesn't sound like
No,
Jay's the kind of guy that's going to make that public. They're going to
would
sleep on it. I
never
would
do it.
never. But you saw a path just so recent on Saturday against Ole Miss, another solid hitting team, of what you are able to do when it clicks on that third game. And so I'm excited to see what they do. But Glenn, we got to talk about it. I don't know if it's the change of the walk-up song, which is an absolute vibe, but Tommy White. I was sitting next to Koki Riley of The Advocate on over the weekend, and we were just sitting there talking about, like, there's few times in this sport. In baseball, you see it. You don't really see it in football as much because it's really more of a team game in certain aspects, where one guy really starts to catch fire and it really becomes contagious. I've got a feeling that Tommy White, the message that he gave us after the Ole Miss series, and he's repeatedly said, he said it on the broadcast in his post-game interview, of he does not want to take this jersey off. That's really starting to resonate. And Glenn, maybe that's some of the leadership, whether it's on the field or in that locker room, in that clubhouse, to where these guys are really believing it. And you're kind of playing with house money. So let's see how far we can go with this thing.
Yeah, look, I mean, Tommy White in this tournament so far, trying to combine the numbers here, he is 5 of 10 at the plate, 5 RBIs, 1 home run, and I don't believe he's struck out. He has not
And
struck
by
out.
the way, this is coming off a weekend where he was SEC Player of the Week and dominated his
Yeah.
final series there in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been just tremendous for you, and I'll take it even a step further. It's not just what he's doing at the plate. I mean, the performance that he had defensively on Tuesday against Georgia in particular, he made some plays that I didn't think he was capable of making, to be quite honest with you. I mean, we knew he
Yeah.
had improved defensively, but there was a slow chopper there, and I'm sure most that watch the game, know exactly the play I'm talking about. A slow chopper up the third baseline. White comes charging up the baseline, bare hands it, delivers an absolute nuke to Jared Jones for the out, and while he's on the run. I mean, it was a prototypical, like, you look at a third baseman in the MLB, that's exactly how that third baseman makes that play. I mean, it was a really
Yeah.
spectacular play. And then there was another really hard line drive that was hit right at him. He's able to make that play. He's able to turn a double play, I believe, as well. When Georgia was trying to maybe make a little bit of a run in one of the innings. I can't remember exactly which one that was, but he's absolutely solidified himself as a first round pick. I think he probably is, the way he's playing defensively, solidified himself as a top 10 pick. I mean, like, he has
Yeah.
been tremendous defensively. And really the thing that has come around has been the bat. Like, I mean, we talked all season long about his defense and improvement on the defense, and it took him a little while to get going at the plate. I mean, it really did not look like the same player we had seen last year for most of the first month and a half of the season. But once SEC play got started, he kicked it into high gear, and he has not looked back since. He's been fantastic. You finally got a big swing from Jared Jones today on
Yeah. He
Wednesday.
needed that.
In that game, he really, really needed that. And so those two actually having 2 grand slams in the same game is the first time that's ever been done in the SEC tournament. That kind of threw me off my chair a little bit watching, the game today. So, look, they're coming together as a team. Offensively, you look at what Braswell's done in the leadoff spot. He's been fantastic. Obviously, with what White and Jones are capable of doing. Hayden Travinsky had a big solo home run on Wednesday as well. You've seen the freshman Stephen Milam and Ashton Larson put together some really good at bats and have made some plays defensively. The Ashton Larson catch at the wall yesterday was another one of those hat tip kind of catches from Gage Jump that really kind of helped keep his outing alive. And then Josh Pearson, another veteran guy who's taken a lot of really good at bats the last couple weeks. He's been kind of the guy that I don't think Jay Johnson. I think he's one of those guys that Jay Johnson trusts more than anyone this time of year, and he's delivered. Had a big 3 RBI game the other day against Georgia. Had another couple of walks and some good at bats today against. Why am I blanking on the team they played just now? It's been a
I'm
lot.
blanking too.
Kentucky.
It's been a lot. Kentucky.
Oh, that's right. Kentucky. God, man. All right. I got into a little tangent there, but yeah, like they've just had such a complementary effect on one another the last really week and a half, 2 weeks of the season. And I mean, it's like I've said it a couple times already, but you could not have scripted a more perfect way for this tournament to start for LSU. I think they have all the confidence in the world, but they've also now burned their 2 starters. They've burned some of their best pitchers. How this bullpen responds, how the pitching staff and Nate Yeski and Jay Johnson get back into the lab today and kind of devise up what the schedule's like the rest of the week. This is where I'm going to be really, really interested now that you've gotten these first 2 games under your belt, because this is the time of year, or this is the time of kind of games here where, you can elevate yourself from just a team that scraps into a regional to a team that can actually make a really deep run if you're able to get some of these guys going.
Yeah, I want to shout out Alex Milazzo too. That guy has been, in the words of Tommy
one guy I
White, a
missed.
wizard. A wizard or a witch.
Yeah.
That's what Tommy White referred to him, both behind the plate, but just with the bat too, finding those clutch hits. And then Josh Pearson might go down as one of the clutchest LSU Tigers the 2000s and 2010s, 2020s. And when you look at what has happened, this guy just always seemingly has the bat. He comes up the plate with the situation, he comes through. Kind of looking ahead, though, is we've talked about the games that have happened, how it's happened, and what we're excited about. But they're going to play tomorrow at 4:30. Glenn, you joked about how are they going to handle having to sit around all afternoon. Like, Jay Johnson's talked about, like, we just need to keep playing. Like, he said that after the Ole Miss series. We need to keep playing because we're playing a brand of baseball that is, if you can sustain that, you can make Omaha. And he said that emphatically. So kind of looking ahead, LSU is going to play that Thursday 4:30 game like we talked about against the winner of Arkansas, South Carolina. Now, if they advance, remember, for fans may not know, you're now in the double elimination portion of the tournament, so that's kind of a key factor to keep in mind. So at the very least, Glenn, LSU has 2 more games remaining. At the most, you could play into Sunday's championship game there at 2 p.m. When you look ahead, when you look at what this is happening, offensively, I feel fine. The pitching, let's just kind of dive into it here as we get ready to kind of wrap this up. We saw multiple times. I will go back to Saturdays. Sam Dutton is your opener. He is going to face 5 batters. And then Nate Ackenhausen came in. Now, the question I had up in the press box was, did they decide not to pitch Ackenhausen to start because he would have been thrown off for the senior day routine, not be able to go through his natural progressions? Maybe. But Jay Johnson did say that Dutton was a guy they really like in that role to kind of get through 5, 6 batters. Then you throw Ackenhausen. The big key story out of last Saturday was Fidel Ulloa, who dazzled for multiple innings. Glenn, if you can find a way to bridge to the 7th inning and you've gone through, let's say, Dutton, Ackenhausen, and Fidel, you have to feel really, really good. And let's say it's a close ball game or you've got a nice little lead against Arkansas or South Carolina. It sets up for that back half of the bullpen. Maybe Gage Jump is a guy that can go again. We'll see. He threw 33 pitches against Georgia. I don't know. We'll see.
I would probably say if you get into that situation, you're looking at Christian Little for the final 7, 8 outs, whatever it would require. I think he's probably the guy you turn to in that
Which
situation.
I'll say about that, if you'd have told me that 2 months ago, we'd have been, oh, okay. You tell me that now, Christian Little's one of the more dialed-in pitchers in the entire SEC.
Yeah,
as of right now.
They're set up really well from a pitching perspective. You just kind of went through some of the names there. Look, we didn't even mention Cade Anderson, who's had some really good moments in midweek games. And the one thing I will say, just kind of briefly about the offense, is that they have faced a couple of midweek guys. They have not faced really an ace yet from these first two teams that they played. If they play Arkansas tomorrow, they're going to get Hagen Smith. So like that. that's going to be a little bit more of a tougher outing you would expect from an offensive perspective. But again, it would also highlight LSU's need to really piece this together from a pitching perspective. And I really like what you said there about the way that they've kind of set it up the last couple of weeks with Dutton and Ackenhausen, and you can throw Lohr into that mix as well.
True.
I am curious to see if maybe they take a look at somebody like Thatcher Hurd. No, it has not gone well for Thatcher for most of this year. This was also the time of year
Yeah.
last year where Thatcher got it going. Um, and I'm going to be very curious to see what they do with him. They actually got him up and warming up in this game today against Kentucky. So we'll see if Thatcher maybe is somebody that they can go to out of the bullpen as this week goes along. But they've got, like I said, they've got everybody available to them except for Holman and Jump for the rest of the week. Like that is a really, really good spot to be in. Even a guy like Herring, who threw 33 pitches, I think on Tuesday, you could bring him back. Maybe not tomorrow, but I would certainly think you could bring him back for a Friday
On
game
Friday.
or during the weekend for some really big outs as well. So, yeah, look, they're set up really well here, and I think the biggest thing that we can learn about this team, and I'll say it again, is like if this pitching gets situated, if you can have another couple of really good outings from some of these guys that you have been hoping to get going here late in the season, it really elevates your ceiling here in the postseason because you got to get two, and you got to get two to start, and then you've got to have that one, especially in a regional. You've got to win at least one more to get through those 3 games and clinch a super regional appearance. That's all going to be on who else she kind of finds they can rely on here over the next couple weeks. And I love your Uoa comp. I think he's somebody that you can certainly expect to see over the next couple days in some form or fashion. Ackenhausen, of course. But I think we're probably looking at a Dutton game tomorrow. Dutton or Javen Coleman maybe gets the first 5-6 outs, and then you kind of hand it over to your long reliever in Nate Ackenhausen. So there's a lot of ways they can piece this together tomorrow. It's going to be really fascinating to see what Jay Johnson and Nate Yeski draw up for whoever they play.
Going back to last Saturday where Thatcher Hurd did pitch, he threw 27 pitches. He faced 6 batters. Glenn, he forced a lot of weak contact in an inning and 2/3. He struck out 2. He walked just 1. And Jay Johnson said post-game that was a massive kind of micro story within the whole weekend of if he really starts to build confidence, because I firmly believe with Thatcher Hurd, it's all in between the years. If he can go out there and hone in the elite stuff that he has, and Glenn, we talked about maybe Holman and Jump doesn't have necessarily the stuff per se in terms of high velocity, inverted stuff, all like that. Thatcher Hurd has that stuff, and we saw that in Omaha last year. So if he can find that for a small time, we'll see.
Yeah, Hurd goes 95, 96, 97. I mean, just throw all the stats this year aside. Some team's going to take him probably in the first 8, 9, 10 rounds because of that velocity and that stuff and kind of the past history that he's had. Obviously, being a huge piece to LSU's run last year in the tournament. Somebody's going to take him pretty early. Like he's got the stuff, and he'll probably figure it out from a more consistency perspective at the next level. But if you can get him going in the short term, that is an absolute game changer for LSU. I mean, like he's somebody that you can throw out there if he's able to string together another couple consistent performances. You could see him start a game in a tournament. And like he's done that before. He's started in Omaha and gotten you a win in the national championship game. Like Thatcher Hurd is not devoid of talent. Thatcher Hurd, like you mentioned, I think got hit on a little bit earlier this year. I think it got to him a little bit, and he lost his command, he lost his focus, lost his control. And I think it's just taken him a while to get going here, and we'll see. Like that was a good first start this last weekend for him, and if he's able to get going a little bit more consistently here in Hoover, that is a really, really big developing story for LSU and this pitching staff.
Man, it is going to be a fun game to watch tomorrow, whether LSU plays South Carolina or not, or Arkansas. And I'm going to, Glenn, do you have that score pulled up? I wanted to kind of give, I know by the time people watch
South Carolina is actually up right now in that game.
Yes. South Carolina is up 2-1. And Arkansas has already gone to the bullpen. So in the top of the 3rd inning, that's the last that I have. right now on this. So as we're recording this, South Carolina's in the lead. We'll see how that holds. But LSU pushing for day 3 and is in firmly in the NCAA tournament. And man, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Stay tuned throughout the weekend over here on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify or Apple. And head over to Go247 down in the link below for recaps, some quotes, some comments, and follow this LSU baseball team, which Glenn, look, my wife's due date is in about 10 days, 10, 12 days. I was getting kind of ready to kind of pack it in on the baseball season, and now they've decided to fire things back up. So it looks like we could be maybe welcoming our baby girl into a world where LSU's playing in a regional. May I say a super regional? We'll see how that all
And
unfolds.
Dad will be at the regional or super regional. Is that correct? Are we going to get
Hey,
Dad on the road first week of your life, or let's see?
I don't know. We'll see. She doesn't remember that young, right? I mean,
Yeah, of course not.
The wife does. The wife will, but
wife would never forgive you for that. Would never forgive you.
That's awesome. Glen West, my name is Bryce Koon, and we will catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.